Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Sports Talk on Tap podcast. Daily videos Monday, mainly covering the NFL, but the MLB postseason is right around the corner. So we're gonna or start today. So we're gonna get some predictions out today. Just what I think will happen. But if you're also an NBA fan, training camp is now underway. So if you like any sports, really, make sure to like and subscribe. Trying to reach 100 subscribers by the end of October. Hopefully, you guys make that. Appreciate all of you, whether it's like of you, I appreciate it. But with that being said, he had a Monday night better. One game towards the end was pretty eventful. In this one, we'll get right into the New York Jets versus Miami Dolphins, and then the Bengals Broncos, which wasn't quite entertaining unless you're a Broncos fan and really enjoyed it. But with that being said, we had an AFC East rivalry game tonight between the New York Jets and Miami Dolphins. Both teams 0-3, desperate for a win. Obviously, I think Miami more so just because of the expectations. Just a couple of years ago, they were a playoff team on the verge of winning the AFC East. Last year, still won 8 games. And Mike McDaniel's seat was very hot. If they lost this game, there was potential rumors they might get fired. But in this game, Miami's looked, the best it had all season. Unfortunately, though, the biggest, storyline is Tyreek Hill leg. He's definitely out for the season. Just dislocated knee. Hate to see it. And he was having a good game before, and two was throwing him the ball. He caught all targets for 64 yards or something like that. And even when the play got injured, he made a nice catch. So that's just unfortunate. Just when the chemistry, was trying to pick back up. He's out for the year. Big loss for the Dolphins. Obviously, though, throughout the game, they were still able to manage it through the run game. Devon Achane got 20-plus carries for 100 yards on the ground, a touchdown. And Darren Waller, a 2-touchdown game. Jalen Waddle caught a few balls for like 50 yards. And Tua just did a good job spreading the ball around, not turning over, which had been a big thing, before. And the reason why they lost the Patriots game, Colts game got out of hand quickly. And last week against the Bills, they were driving with the chance to tie, and he threw a pick. This week he played efficient football, and that's, shown the results. They were up, I believe it was 27-10. And then New York did make a little bit of a comeback. They got a field goal. And then obviously a touchdown, 2-point conversion. Biggest storyline for the Jets is Justin Fields' mobility. He's going to be one of the most deadly, runners in the game. We saw that on the touchdown where he just, scrambled around, avoided a couple tackles, and just did like some Lamar Jackson type jukes to get into the end zone. And, he's a special athlete. And I think he's slowly becoming a better passer. We've seen in this game, it wasn't quite up to the Steelers game, but that game was, amazing. But he definitely bounced back from a rough passing game against the Bills. He was able to get Garrett Wilson the ball. Just a good job spreading it out, playing some turnover-free football in the air. But the biggest storyline why the Jets lost this game was the fumbles. Justin Fields had one. Braylon Allen had one. A punt return, kick return. Isaiah Williams had one, the receiver. So it was unfortunate. That's kind of what costed the Jets this game and, put themselves in too big of a hole to dig out of because they just ran out of time. But, for the Jets, I think there's optimism. Fields, out of the look really good solid in at least 2 of them through the air, which is the biggest thing. So hopefully they continue that. Breece Hall continues to look like a stud for them, having a great bounce back year. Kind of similar to Travis Etienne. So the offense is, revitalized a little bit. Garrett Wilson obviously is a stud. But if the Jets offense continue to develop, the defense, Sauce Gardner just taking a couple too many penalties, I think it's just disappointing because just with Robert Saleh, one of the best units of football, and now as the offense continues to get better, the defense definitely has its holes. And when Tyreek Hill goes out, should not be moving the ball as efficiently as it was. And that was kind of the biggest storyline and why the Jets lost this game. So hopefully Aaron Glenn can get this defense, on a roll. But unfortunate, but Miami, definitely at least saves Mike McDaniel's job, saves their season temporarily heading into next week. Because if you're 0-4, your season's basically done. And I think Miami was just the more desperate team for the win. Still the more talented team just with all the offensive weapons they Mike McDaniel, an offensive mind. They're able to sneak out a win in the division at home. And I was glad because I picked them, and kind of these 2 Monday night games helped my picks a little bit because the next game I also got right. Bengals versus Broncos, 2-1 Bengals, 1-2 Broncos, but it was pretty clear that the Broncos could easily have been 3-0. They lost a game-winning field goal to the Colts where he missed it. And they get called for reaching over the holder, and then the Chargers, just Justin Herbert leading game-winning drive, beautiful touchdown pass to tie it last week, kind of a heartbreaker to lose. But this week, the Broncos offense was very efficient. J.K. Dobbins on the ground, 100-plus yard carry. Harvey was good on his limited carries as well. And then Bo Nix, good job spreading the ball through the air. The last 2 weeks, or I think week one, the game they won in last week, his best games. He had a good game against but he played turnover-free football for the most part. I know the interception he threw, but it was in the end zone, kind of had to go for it, 4th and goal. They were just being aggressive. The offense looked great. Defense, looked like the best defense in the league like they had. But I think for the Bengals, this shows the season's over. If you don't acquire a quarterback, Jake Browning just can't do it like he did 2 years ago. This offense over the last weeks has put up stinkers. The defense, is still bad. I don't know. Unless you trade for a quarterback, trade away Trey Hendrickson while he has value and just kind of restart, because this season's a lost cause. The team is not good. They can't play combat football, and it was clear. Broncos are levels above them. Bo Nix, was spreading the ball out nice to Marvin Mims. Cortland Sutton had a great touchdown, 80-plus yards. R.J. Harvey was some Troy Franklin doing his thing. The Broncos just looked like the way better team, played combat football on both sides. Bo Nix, had a nice bounce-back game. So, good win for Denver. It was obviously a must 1-2 in this division. You need to get to 2-2, and they dominated at home. That defense, against the Colts looked very bad, pretty much looked, pretty bad besides a couple stops. Colts are moving the ball very well. Against the Chargers, for the most part, they were in it, but just the lost at the end, almost kind of a choke, up 7 with like 5 minutes to go and lose. But they, in that Tennessee game and this Bengals game, did what they need to do. Basically stomp their foot on them, give them no chance. Bengals 8 punts in this game. Jamar Chase T against Holt to about 30 yards a carry, or 30 yards in the game each. And that's showing in their frustration. Jamar Chase, talking to Zach Taylor, getting riled up. And I need that because I traded for Jamar Chase in fantasy. Still hoping Jake Brown can get him the ball. Didn't quite work out over the last 2 weeks. But yeah, for the Bengals fans, after the Vikings game, really couldn't get any worse, but it was not really any better at all. Went from maybe a 1 out of 10 to a 2 out of 10 just because it was slightly closer. But yeah, the Broncos pretty much did whatever they want on offense and definitely did whatever they want on defense. I think after the Bengals went up 3-0 on the opening drive. Yeah, it's a mess in Cincinnati, and it's just unfortunate. The season they got off to a good start, 2-0. Joe Burrow's out for the year, and now these last 2 games, they've just been absolutely dominated, 0 shot of winning. And yeah, now we're off to whatever it is. Trade. Do they get Kirk Cousins? That kind of remains to be seen. Do they try and trade for Jameis Winston? I have no idea, but it's a mess. But like I said, great job for Denver to bounce back. The way KC's looking now, only getting healthier. The Chargers still one of the best teams in the league. And the Raiders, still vying to be competitive. So with that being said, it was a good Monday night for me. Was able to go 2-0 in picks, even though they weren't necessarily the hardest. But the Dolphins-Jets was pretty much a toss-up. But overall, still a decently rough week for me. Lost some close games that I needed to win. So I finished about middle in the pack in the pool, like 21 out of 42. So kind of dead on middle. But yeah, hoping to have a bounce back week. Week 3 was obviously my worst week after having a pretty good first 2 weeks. So I hope to continue this momentum and get back into it. So with that being said, let's get into some week 5 picks. I can't believe I'm already saying it's week 5. Does not feel right, but here we are. Tuesday games start Thursday, so we're kind of that in that 2-day doldrum where we don't get any good football or any football. So with that being said, we have another NFC West showdown. Last week was Arizona versus Seattle on Thursday night. That turned out to be a great game. This week, hopefully, we'll get a good one with the San Francisco 49ers traveling against the Rams. I'm going with the Rams on this one. I think they're the better team, the more healthy team. And, that win against the Colts. This offense is electric. Puka Nacua looks like the best receiver in the league. Kyron Williams, complimentary running back. Matthew Stafford, top 5 quarterback right now. That back does not seem to be bothering him. Devontae Adams, that providing an extra this offense that Cooper Kupp couldn't last year. 49ers, just too many mistakes, turnovers, cost them last week. And Brock Purdy's already experiencing soreness, so we don't even know if he'll be able to go. Mac Jones showed, though, he can be a capable starter. But just with all the injuries, I think the Rams will be able to move the ball. It's still, a division game, so Kyle Shanahan has had Sean McVay's number in the past to make this a scrappy game. I think it could be, but I'm still taking the Rams like 20-13 because that defense with Jared Verse is elite. They were able to make the Colts offense look, at least average offense, where the first 3 weeks, I think they punted the ball once. So credit to the Rams. I think they're the better team on both sides of the ball and should pull this one out, especially at home. But 49ers fans do travel well, so or San Francisco fans, yeah. So it should be a good game. But I'll take the Rams. I think obviously just better offense right now, better defense. Give me them. Next up, my Minnesota Vikings versus the Cleveland Browns. Another 9:30 game. Got to wake up to see the Steelers pretty much, dominate us for a majority of that game, only to get my hopes up at the end, but yet to be disappointed. And I'm not excited for this one. 3 injuries on the O-line. Brian O'Neill. Thankfully, he's only week to week, but he's not going to be playing this week. And Donovan Jackson still out. Ryan Kelly, another concussion. I mean, his career might be over, sadly. But either way, 3 backups in against this Cleveland front seven. Myles Garrett will probably feast unless he lines up on Darius' side, where he still might win some reps, but at least it's more even. But I think he'll be going up against Justin School. I pray for Carson Wentz. They're definitely going to need, Josh Oliver, TJ Hawkinson being at least another support chip block just to try and help minimize him, but you really can't. Myles Garrett is the best defensive player in football right now. This Browns defense is fast. They gave the Lions some problems last week, even though it turned into a blowout. Mainly just because this Cleveland offense can't move the ball. And that's what I'm most confident in as a Vikings fan. We don't even know who's starting yet. There's been rumors Dylan Gabriel, Shador Sanders might start just because Joe Flacco really can't move the ball. Only hope right now is Judkins, who could get a lot going on the ground. I hope he does some stuff because I did trade for him in fantasy, and he did pretty good last week for me. But obviously, I still want the Vikings to win. But in this one, honestly, I think it's going to be a barn burner, like a 13-10 type game. It's not going to be very exciting. Vikings injuries on offense. Cleveland just kind of sucking on offense. Both defenses, Cleveland's defense, very elite. Minnesota's pretty good, even with the injury still, even in their worst games against Atlanta and Pittsburgh, they're only allowing 23 points a game. So, and they've shown against the Bengals and Bears, they can really stomp their foot when it matters. But still, I don't know. I think it's going to be an ugly game. Carson Wentz probably have 4 turnovers in the game. I think that's the key to Cleveland winning. Honestly, this is a very 50-50 matchup. I could easily see Cleveland winning this. I just trust Minnesota's offense a little bit more. Jefferson, Addison, back last week, 100+ yards. Hawkinson, and I think it's going to be a barn burner. Cleveland wins this, if they force Carson Wentz into 3 picks, 2 fumbles. But still, I really can't trust Cleveland's offense to move the ball. And that's kind of been the story. And I think Browns fans can attest to that. They did enough against the Packers, so that's the team they're going to have to play to beat the Vikings. Very well could. But still, I think the Vikings defense in its own right, is still very good, at least through the air passing. But it's going to be a barn burner. I think the Vikings have a little bit of a rest advantage, being already in Ireland, traveling to England a short week. They're more rested. They're used to that time zone. So I think that's a little bit of an underrated advantage for the Vikings. So give me them to win a barn burner like 13-10. I'm not very excited. I could easily see Cleveland winning. It's really 50. I just trust the Vikings offense a little bit more. Next up, Houston versus Baltimore. Houston, looked good last week. Their offense finally got rolling a little bit. Willie Mark stepped in, played great. Baltimore took a bad loss to the Chiefs. Lamar Jackson's status is in question. Regardless, Houston's defense is elite, and Baltimore's dealing with a lot of injuries. Matabike out for the year now, which just sucks to see. Marlon out for a while. This game's going to be close to me. I feel like Baltimore's super desperate for a win, and we've seen Cooper Rush, be able to perform. Capable backup back in Dallas. He's got D-Hop, Derrick Henry. They got to get Derrick Henry the ball more. I don't know what that game plan was last week, especially now with the backup. If Cooper Rush does have to play, I'm going to go Baltimore hesitantly right now just because I still don't trust Houston's offense. It's in Baltimore. Baltimore's desperate to not go 1-4. And this kind of just a desperation pick to save my Super Bowl pick where I picked the Ravens to win. Because if they start 1-4, even if Lamar only misses a week, that's a really tough hole to climb out of. And still they're playing a first place schedule. So I don't know. I think it's going to be a barn burner one just with all the injuries on both sides and just Houston's offense being incapable. But, still their defense being arguably the best in the league so far, pitching a shutout against the Titans and making Cam Ward have to say to everyone, we suck ass. It's going to be a good game. But, at home, I'm just going to go with Baltimore hesitantly right now. And if Lamar Jackson is able to feel a lot more confident, but still going to be a barn burner. But I still like Baltimore's O-line more, their weapons a little bit more, even without Ron Lee Stanley. I don't think he'll be playing either. Next up, Dolphins versus Carolina. This is a very tough game, but given the way Carolina looked last week, I have to go Miami. Miami's offense, even without Tyreek Hill, they still have Jalen Waddle, Davon Achan, Darren Waller now. I think Tua in this offense will do enough to win. Carolina's defense looked atrocious last week, which I did not expect. I did pick the Patriots, but still, Bryce Young really hasn't taken that leap we thought he would with this offense. Miami's defense, isn't the best. It's definitely taken a step down, but still, maybe Bradley Chubb, Chop Robinson will be able to get after them enough or force Bryce Young in a mistake or two. In Carolina, though, we saw what Carolina did back at home against Atlanta just 2 weeks ago. So I also, once again, don't feel confident about this one, but I think Miami's playmaking and just momentum on their side right now, picking up their first win. Carolina getting drubbed last week. I don't know. I'll go with the Dolphins hesitantly. I think they're the slightly more talented team. So give me Miami to continue their momentum and go to 2-3. Next up, Raiders versus Indianapolis. Indianapolis is back at home. I think last week against the Rams showed that they can compete against the best teams in the league. And if AD Mitchell doesn't fumble the ball at the 1 yard line, maybe they win. But Geno Smith is a turnover machine right now. So he's due for a pick or two each game, it seems like now. Just GNT finally broke out. I think he can get going because this Colts front seven isn't all that great, but that defense can get some turnovers when it needs to. And this offense is still, with Shane Steichen, one of the best in the league. Tyler Warren, Jonathan Taylor, Alec Pierce coming back, Michael Pittman, being a receptions machine, and especially in the red zone. The Colts offense is still one of the best in the league. I trust them to, bounce back. As this Raiders defense, outside Max Crosby, who's a stud, by the way, he could easily just game and make this ugly like he did, but still, Raiders is just turnover prone. I think Indiana will force some timely turnovers to help secure a win and improve to 4-1 and have a bounce back week. Next up, the Giants riding Jackson Dart versus the Saints. Credit to the Saints, like I said, against that Bills game, they fought, and they've really fought every game besides the Seahawks. One, Spencer Rattler, I think, is a capable quarterback in this league. But I'm not betting against my guy, Jackson Dart. I made that mistake last week. I've always been a fan of his back at Ole Miss. I think Brian did a good job easing him in. Kevin O'Connell, take notes, please. And yeah, it wasn't, the most eye-popping stats, but Dart used his legs when he needed to, made some throws when he needed to. I am a little bit concerned about, this offense without Malik Neighbors, but still, I think Dart and this team will do enough. Still, though, the Saints are very scrappy. I think they'll be able to move the ball, but this Giants defense proved they're elite. That front seven can get after and really disrupt this game. So maybe I think it's a Spencer Rattler fumble or pick that does it. But still, it won't be the prettiest game just because of the Giants' lack of weapons. They still have Wan'Dale Robinson. But overall, Cam Scatteraboo can get stuff going on the ground, but still, it's going to be tough for them to move the ball without Neighbors. I think it's going to be one of those lower scoring games, like 17-13, but I trust, my boy Jackson Dart, I guess, to pull it out, and Brian Dable, carrying the momentum in from that awesome win against the Chargers last week. But it should be a good game. The Saints are not going to let this be a blowout. They've shown that they can be competitive over the first 4 weeks. Next up, the Jets. I could see, the Jets winning this one, to be honest. But Dallas's offense, I just trust more. George Pickens can be a capable wide receiver one. Javonte Williams, had to trade for him in fantasy. He's been a stud so far. Been holding up enough. Dak's been putting up some MVP numbers back to like that 2023 for him. Jake Ferguson. This defense still stinks. Fields, Wilson will be able to move the ball. I think it will be kind of similar to the Jets Steelers week 1, where both teams are just kind of exchanging shootouts, because that's what Dallas is going to be in every game this year. But I still trust Dak in the clutch to get it done more so than Fields. I think that's the main difference, just the quarterback playing this one. I'll take Dallas to win get their win on the road and improve to 2-1. But the Jets, their offense has proven they can move the ball with Fields, that rushing attack. So Dallas is in for another, once again, shootout that maybe before the year we didn't expect. Next up, Denver versus Philadelphia. This is going to be a great game. The Broncos still have one of the best defenses in football. Philly's, been finding different ways to win close games. If this was in Denver, I'd probably take, but since it's at Philly, A.J. Brown sending out the cryptic tweets, this offense, 0 passing yards in the second half. Saquon Barkley hasn't looked the same, but they still just find ways to win. Jalen Hurts has proven he can be one of the most clutch quarterbacks, and Quinyon Mitchell in this defense gets timely stops when they need to. And when they're playing complimentary football, we saw in that first half against Tampa Bay, they can't put belts out. They did let their foot off the gas. Defense gave up some big plays. But like I said, got stops when they need to. Quinyon Mitchell looks like a stud. up front. I think Jalen Carter might be able to disrupt Bo Nix, but this isn't going to be easy. Denver's offense can move the ball. Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, RJ Harvey, J.K. Dobbins on the ground. It's going to be a very close game. I could even really see this being Philly's first loss, where they just kind of really haven't clicked all year. But I'll go with Philly at home to start 5-0. Like I said, I think whoever's the home team in this one would win, because Denver's is very scrappy 2-2. Could easily be 4-0, and we saw what they can do to their opponents last night. But I think short week as well for Denver provides a little bit of a disadvantage, and then having to go on the road, fly across the country, I think provides a little bit of advantage to Philly, basically like a day and a half of rest, which will be the key because 1 o'clock game as well. It's not even like a 4:20 or Sunday night. So I think Philly's a little bit of a roll into this, and Philly closing out this game 20-17. It's going to be very close. And I'm excited to see how Denver matches up. The first 4 o'clock game, Tennessee versus Arizona. I'm going Arizona. Arizona has dropped 2 in a row. Still 2 very close games. They played it never. All 4 games have been close. This offense really hasn't clicked until that second half against the Seahawks. But like I said, that'll be the biggest question mark. Can Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison continue to carry this momentum? DeMarcado, Benson backfield now. This defense is, and Tennessee's offense is abysmal. Brian Callahan, I don't think, is a good head coach. So I'm riding Arizona pretty comfortably, especially at home, to get back on track and start 3-2. Next up, Tampa Bay versus Seattle. This is going to be another great game. But I'm going to go with my boys with Seattle. I'm a big Sam Darnold guy. I love Baker Mayfield as well. But, what Sam Darnold did for the Vikings last year, I always have hold in my heart. I think Seattle's defense is, one of the best in football with Mike McDonald. I think they'll do enough to get Baker Mayfield, make him force an in this game. I think they're very good. And still without Tampa a little bit, obviously, just because he's one of the best receivers in the league. Chris Godwin is still working his way back. Emeka Buka is a stud, but if they shout Devin Witherspoon on him, maybe they'll be able to contain him, one of the best young corners in the league. But still, Tariq Woolen, they might be able to pick on him. I think it's going to be a great game. It's going to be a back and forth. Seattle can move the ball as well. They've gotten kind of better each week on offense, with Charbonnet, Walker, and then Donald thriving off the play action to JSN. Cooper Kupp's been getting more involved, Barner, just a bunch of different guys. I think if, like I said, another similar thing, whoever's the home team, I think having that fan base behind them will play a big role, even though Seattle hasn't been that great at home. I think at home, they're riding the momentum now, 3 games. I think they improved to 4-1, but should be a great game. I think it's going to be like a 27-23 type of game. Because Tampa Bay's, defense can get stopped too. We saw in the second half really clamp down against Philly, but I like Seattle. I think their play action game is, one of the best, and I think the offensive line a little bit better than I expected. So still Vita Vea might be able to get to Darnold a couple times, but still I'm riding Seattle at home. My boy Sam Darnold. I think this offense, we talked about how good what's his name? Sorry. What receiver were we just talking about? That looks like wide receiver 1 in this league. JSN has arguably been Puka Nacua. JSN is up there right now to the best NFC West receivers in the league. JSN's been, getting that connection with Darnold going. Next up, 425 Detroit versus Cincinnati. Not really thinking much about this. Cincinnati's offense is abysmal. Their defense is abysmal. Detroit, since that week 1, one of the best offenses in football. Gibbs covering backfield. Amon-Ra St. Brown catching touchdowns, 100-plus yard games. Jameson Williams, deep ball. Sam Laporta through the middle. This defense with Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch, healthy corners. Aiden Hutchinson continuing to get going. Not really thinking much about this. Detroit's going to improve to 4-1 pretty comfortably. Next up, Washington versus Los Angeles. Jane Daniels should be back for this game. I think it's going to be an interesting game, but this is tough because Joe Alt's out. Rashawn Slater, is already out, so this O-lines are very banged up. Herbert, they took a tough loss last week. I'm expecting a better game from him. Washington, with Mariota, played okay. They went 1-1. They did what they needed to do, at least picking up 1 win without Jane Daniels. This defense, is one of the best pressure defenses, but still have some question marks with that secondary. This is once again going to be a very close game. If Jane Daniels is fully healthy, we got a tough week, folks. I'm going to go with, just with all the injuries to the Chargers, we saw how the Giants were able to disrupt, and the Commanders have been disruptive. So I'm going to go Washington. Terry McLaurin, Jane Daniels, Krosky Merritt, has been getting more involved this running game with Cliff Kingsbury over the last couple of weeks. The Chargers, though, still one of the best defenses in football. Quinn Johnson is looking like one of the best and always reliable, lucky, a stud still. but still the O-line really is concerning. But then again, Omari Hampton looked like a stud. I was really kind of surprised because Greg Roman, has always been a run-heavy guy. Why he has a little bit more. I thought last week they put too much on Herbert's plate to make plays, with just this giant front seven, which was a clear mismatch. It's going to be tough, though, because Washington is one of the best pressure defenses in the league, but Atlanta did a pretty good job containing that. Michael Penix had a big bounce-back game. Call me a flip-flopper. I'm actually going to go with the Chargers. I think, Jane Daniels, might still be a little bit rusty. We've seen him and McLaurin those first 2 weeks. We're not on the same page, so I think it's going to take them a couple more weeks. I think the Chargers have a bounce-back win back at home. I think, they're going to have a sour taste in their mouth losing a game they shouldn't to the Giants. I think they bounce back even with the O-line injuries, but it wouldn't surprise me if Washington wins. I think this is another 50-50 game. And then the Sunday night game, the Patriots, man, what a game for them. They, have been looking much improved this year. Like I expected, an 8-9 win team, putting BTA against the Panthers, dropping 42, Drake May looking amazing, just finding different guys. Hunter Henry, Diggs had a 100+ yard game, maybe his first as a Patriot. Boute's been looking really good, but it's in Orchard Park. And while the Bills, honestly have just kind of been, sleepwalking through games, still dropping 30+ points. Josh Allen still putting up MVP numbers. James Cook looking like a stud. Shakir. The defense, I think, is a little susceptible. I think the Patriots will be able to move the ball. I think it's going to be kind of a close game, like 27-23. But I'm riding with the MVP at home. I think Buffalo will win this one and improve to 5-0. They still just look like when they need to turn on, they will, and they'll. But the Patriots are scrappy. They'll keep it close. Sunday night primetime, they'll want to make a statement. But give me the Buffalo Bills to win that one. And then a great Monday night game to close this out. Jacksonville, a very impressive road win against the 49ers. Trevor Lawrence played mistake-free football. ETN looks rejuvenized, played amazing so far. Top 5 running back, in my opinion, throughout the first quarter of the season. But the Chiefs, man, they made it against the Ravens. Xavier Worthy looking back. This whole offense looked completely different, dropping 37 points, moving the ball at will. Mahomes touchdown passes, find different guys. Hollywood Brown, Tyquan Thorne when they needed to. I think it's going to be hard to pick against the Chiefs right now. I think Jacksonville will keep this competitive at home, but the way the Chiefs looked last week, I really can't bet against them. I'm expecting them. Jacksonville might be prone to get a turnover at this rate. They look like they're 2 turnovers a game. So I think it's going to be, not the best, most pretty win for the Chiefs like it was last week. I think it's going to be like a 27-23 type of game where I think the Chiefs just pull it out. I think, ETN will be able to still run the ball. Trevor Lawrence will still make plays, but still, I think Jr. and Travis Hunter, wide receiver duo hasn't panned out like everyone, including myself, had thought it would be over the first couple weeks. So I'm going to take the Chiefs. So just kind of to give a quick recap, I got the Rams over the 49ers in the NFC West Thursday night game. Minnesota squeaking by the Browns in the England game. And then Baltimore barely being Houston just with the injuries. Miami over Carolina. Indianapolis to bounce back over Vegas. The Giants to win a close one against the Saints. Dallas to win a close shootout against the Jets. Philly just to edge the Broncos. I think whoever's at home wins that. To beat the Titans. Seattle to win a thriller against Tampa. Detroit to stop Cincinnati. Los Angeles to win a close one against the Commanders. Buffalo to win a surprising Sunday night thriller, and then Kansas City to edge out Jacksonville. But let me know your guys' picks, because there's a lot of 50-50 games that, I'm still deciding. It may change, and obviously we'll let you guys know, just with more injuries, because I really don't like that, Ravens pick. Dolphins is questionable. I think, a lot of these games are questionable. Giants, Saints, in some of those 4 o'clocks we went over, Chargers, Commanders, Tampa Bay, Seattle. I think those are all going to be very close games. But still, hopefully, because that's the beauty of the NFL. It's just super competitive. Even the Eagles, who are 4-0, their teeth shows this league, isn't, dominated like, like the a couple of years ago. But still, I'm always curious to get your guys' thoughts. Let me know what picks you agree with, disagree with, you see coming that I might not see. Always curious to get your guys' thoughts. But as always, if you enjoy this kind of content, enjoy NFL, MLB, NBA, make sure to like and subscribe. Truly means a lot. Like I said, trying to reach 100 subscribers by the end of October. Always appreciate you guys watching, and I'll catch you next one. Peace.